Sports are one of the most exciting things humans have ever invented. The competition, the skill, the moments that make entire stadiums hold their breath at once. But sometimes the unthinkable happens. Sometimes an athlete steps onto the field, the court, the track, or the ring, and never comes home. Today we're talking about some of the most tragic moments in sports history. Athletes who gave everything to their sport and paid the ultimate price. These are real people, real stories, and real moments that changed how we think about the games we love. Let's start at the beginning. Ray Chapman, baseball 1920. Ray Chapman was a shortstop for the Cleveland Indians and by all accounts one of the most beloved players in the league. He was fast, he was skilled, and everyone who knew him said he was one of the genuinely good guys in the game. On August 16, 1920, Chapman was at bat during a game against the New York Yankees at the Polo Grounds in New York. The pitcher was Carl Mays, known for throwing submarine-style pitches that were hard to track. On one particular pitch, Chapman leaned into the ball instead of pulling back. The baseball hit him directly in the left temple with a sickening crack so loud that some witnesses thought it was the sound of the bat hitting the ball. Chapman collapsed at the plate, he was carried off the field and rushed to the hospital. He died the following morning at just 29 years old. Ray Chapman remains the only player in Major League Baseball history to have died as a direct result of being hit by a pitch during a game. His death led to several rule changes, including the requirement that umpires replace scuffed or dirty balls during games since dirty balls were harder to see and contributed to the tragedy. Dale Earnhardt, NASCAR, 2001. If you know anything about NASCAR, you know the name Dale Earnhardt, the Intimidator, 7-time NASCAR champion, one of the most dominant drivers the sport has ever seen. He was larger than life, a legend in every sense of the word. On February 18, 2001, the final lap of the Daytona 500, one of the most prestigious races in motorsport, Earnhardt was running in third place. His two cars, driven by his son, Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Michael Waltrip, were fighting for the lead ahead of him. By all accounts, Earnhardt was protecting them, blocking other drivers from getting past. Then, in the final turn of the final lap, his car made contact with another vehicle and hit the outer wall at high speed. The crash didn't look dramatically different from dozens of other crashes fans had seen that day. But Dale Earnhardt did not get out of the car. He died from a basilar skull fracture. He was 49 years old. His death sent shockwaves through NASCAR and the entire sports world. It led to massive safety improvements, including the widespread adoption of the HANDS device, a head and neck support restraint that has since saved countless lives in motorsport. Ayrton Senna, Formula One, 1994. Before Dale Earnhardt, there was Ayrton Senna. Widely considered one of the greatest Formula One drivers of all time, Senna was a 3-time world champion from Brazil who drove with a combination of pure talent and fearless intensity that made him must-watch television every single race. On May 1st, 1994, at the San Marino Grand Prix in Imola, Italy, Senna was leading the race when his car veered off course at the high-speed Tamburello corner and hit a concrete wall. The car was travelling at around 190 miles per hour when it left the track. He was airlifted to hospital in Bologna, where he died later that day at the age of 34. A piece of suspension from his own car had penetrated his helmet during the crash. Senna's death, along with the death of Roland Ratzenberger just a day earlier at the same event, caused Formula One to completely overhaul its safety regulations. The sport became significantly safer in the years that followed, and many credit those two tragedies with forcing changes that have saved countless lives in motorsport since. Tom Simpson, Tour de France, 1967. The Tour de France is one of the most grueling sporting events on Earth. Riders cover around 2,200 miles over 3 weeks, climbing mountains that would make most people's legs give out just looking at them. On July 13, 1967, British cyclist Tom Simpson was climbing Mont Ventoux, one of the most notoriously brutal climbs in the race, on a day where temperatures were reportedly above 130 degrees Fahrenheit on the road surface. With about a mile left to the summit, Simpson began to weave across the road. He fell off his bike. He was helped back on by spectators. He rode a short distance further before collapsing again. This time, he didn't get back up. Tom Simpson died on the mountain. He was 29 years old. When medical personnel reached him, they found amphetamines in his jersey pocket and more in his bloodstream. The combination of extreme heat, exhaustion, and stimulant drugs had been fatal. His death sparked a major conversation about doping in cycling, a conversation that, as most sports fans know, the sport is still having to this day. A memorial stone now sits at the spot where he fell on Mont Ventoux. Hank Gathers, college basketball, 1990. Hank Gathers was one of the most electric college basketball players of his generation. Playing for Loyola Marymount University in California, Gathers led the entire nation in both scoring and rebounding in the 1988 to 1989 season, a feat that had only been achieved by one player before him in the history of college basketball. Earlier in the 1989 to 1990 season, Gathers had collapsed during a game due to an irregular heartbeat. He was diagnosed with a heart condition and was put on medication. On March 4, 1990, during a conference tournament game, Gathers rose for a dunk in the first half and collapsed on the court immediately after scoring. He never regained consciousness. He was 23 years old. His death raised serious questions about how athletic programs handle cardiac conditions in young athletes and whether student athletes are given enough information about the risks of competing with known heart problems. His story remains one of the most heartbreaking in college sports history. Flo Hyman. Volleyball, 1986. Flora Flo Hyman was one of the greatest volleyball players the United States has ever produced. She was a key member of the U.S. women's volleyball team that won a silver medal at the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics, a team that helped elevate the sport's profile enormously in America. On January 24, 1986, Hyman was playing for a professional team in Japan when she suddenly collapsed during a substitution. She was 31 years old. She died from a rupture of the aorta, caused by Marfan syndrome, a genetic disorder that affects connective tissue, often in very tall, long-limbed individuals. At 6 feet 5 inches tall, Hyman had several physical characteristics associated with the condition, but it had never been diagnosed during her lifetime. Her death helped raise awareness of Marfan syndrome worldwide and inspired many sports organizations to begin screening athletes for the condition. The Flo Hyman Award is presented annually by USA Volleyball to an athlete who demonstrates the dignity, spirit, and commitment that she embodied. Johnny Owen, boxing, 1980. Boxing is a sport where danger is understood from the first bell, but some fights cross a line that leaves the sport changed forever. Johnny Owen was a young Welsh boxer nicknamed the Matchstick Man, a reference to his incredibly thin, frail-looking frame that contradicted the toughness he showed every time he stepped into a ring. He was undefeated as a professional and had worked his way up to challenge Lupe Pinto for the WBC bantamweight title in Los Angeles. On September 19, 1980, in the 12th round of that fight, Owen was knocked down and couldn't get back up. He was taken to hospital in a coma. He never regained consciousness. He died 46 days later on November 4, 1980, at just 24 years old. What made his story particularly heartbreaking was that Owen had never spoken outside the ring. He was famously shy off stage, quiet and devoted to his family in Wales. His father, who was at ringside that night, never really recovered from the loss. Johnny Owen had never even had a girlfriend. Boxing was his whole world. Lupe Pinto, who knocked him down, was deeply affected by Owen's death for the rest of his life. Andres Escobar, soccer, 1994. Not every death on this list happened during competition. Sometimes the consequences of sport extend far beyond the final whistle in the most tragic and senseless way imaginable. Andres Escobar was a Colombian soccer defender, a calm, skilled player known as El Caballero, the gentleman, for his fair and dignified style of play. He was a key player on the Colombian national team that headed into the 1994 FIFA World Cup in the United States with enormous expectations. On June 22, 1994, during a group stage match against the United States, Escobar accidentally deflected the ball into his own net, a devastating own goal that contributed to Colombia's elimination from the tournament. 10 days later, on July 2, 1994, back home in Medellin, Colombia, Escobar was shot and killed outside a restaurant. He was 27 years old. Reports indicated that with each shot, the gunman shouted, "Goal!" mocking the own goal that had ended Colombia's World Cup. His murder shocked the world and remains one of the darkest moments in the history of international sport, a reminder of how deeply sport can intersect with violence, crime, and the most dangerous aspects of the societies surrounding it. His death was a turning point in conversations about fan violence, organised crime in football, and the impossible pressure placed on athletes in some parts of the world. These stories are heavy, and they should be. Because behind every game, every race, every match, there are human beings putting themselves on the line for something they love. Sports have changed because of these athletes. Safety rules were rewritten, equipment was redesigned, screening procedures were introduced. The sports we watch today are safer because of the losses that came before. But more than anything, these stories are a reminder that the athletes we watch are not invincible. They're people. With families, with fears, with lives that extend far beyond whatever sport they play. So next time you watch a game, a race, a fight, or a match, remember the people who changed the sport forever by giving everything they had and never coming home.